The New York City Football Club, well, Brad Sims is the president and CEO, and he says the first shovel will be in the ground for the new soccer stadium. Well, he anticipates by mid-September, maybe late September too. We've got a full conversation with Brad Sims coming up for you a little bit later on. A country known as the inventor of wine has just knocked off Portugal in the Euros just a couple of minutes ago. And we'll probably kick off with that on NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, we're back from the two-game road swing. I'm Glenn Crooks, Roberto Abramowitz, your English and Spanish hometown radio commentators. Hometown if you're a New York City FC supporter. If you're not and you're watching this anyway, you can listen to us too. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you. And, well, Roberto, on this last stop in Nashville, we sat down with Brad Sims, and you'll notice you're going to see some things. Chris Campbell put out an article today. Brad, this past Tuesday, also sat down with several others and sort of a midterm report, but some things we learned that we did not know, or some things were specified a little bit more, Roberto, than they had been in the past. So we're going to do that during the Kicking It Around segment. It's a 25-minute sit-down, and so you'll have to be patient as we go through some other things. We have to. This game just ended. We have to start with Georgia, that is the country, the Georgia Republic, defeating Portugal. This is a country, honestly, they are considered, they're 75th in the world. That's not the worst. But their national sport is rugby. And indeed, they are the country, and it was years ago, obviously, but they're given credit for inventing wine. So how about that, Roberto?
See, I didn't know.
That's an important consideration, I think, for us to lead with them, is the fact that, and I got so excited about that. I kind of, and I learned a few other things about them when I was watching it today. I said, I don't know that much about Georgia. Well, first of all, this is their first international competition. Their national soccer team wasn't born until 1990. They were an independent country. Then they lost their independence when the Soviet Union invaded. Where have we heard that before? Although a hybrid of Soviet Union. And yes. Then they regained their independence, started this national team, and are in their first international competition, qualifying for their first international competition. And they knock off Portugal. So they have a tie, a loss, and a win in their group. They rank third right now. So I don't know if it's been determined whether they'll advance. I haven't even been able to
Eddie says yes. Eddie says that okay. Georgia advances.
I do know that England
will now he's my go-to source.
And now England will play Slovakia instead of Netherlands in the round of 16 because by virtue of Georgia's win over Portugal. So England will be sending flowers as well, and as part of a celebration.
Until they find a way to screw that game up too.
Well, I think England is fortunate. The Georgia another thing, they're like Croatia, population 3.7 million. They have the highest mountain range. This is another thing I was attracted to, the highest mountain range in Europe. You wouldn't think that.
Very nice.
They have like 6 peaks that are over 15,000 feet. So it's called the Caucasus Mountain Range. So that's as much I know about Georgia. And now
well, let me give you some soccer facts about Georgia that you may not have known.
All right.
As far as their ranking is concerned,
75th.
Their average rank is 91st in the world. Right now, they're sitting in 74th. The best they've done is 42. And in the past year, they've been basically anywhere between 79 and 74. So this is the best that they've been, and they will climb after this victory. When you knock off the sixth best team in the world in an international competition and not in a friendly, you get some brownie points for that. So they will be climbing in the ranks for doing that. Now, we understand Portugal had already clinched first place in the group. They didn't play a lot of their starters. We do know that they did play Cristiano Ronaldo, but and they got scored upon in the first 2 minutes of the game. 5th fastest goal in the history of the Euros so far, and they wound up losing. So it makes for some fun, and I love to see small teams like that knock off a big team and what it means to them. You can just see the celebration on the field. I can't even imagine what is going on in the stands and as they spill out into the stadium and what's going on in the country. This is a really, really big deal for them. Okay, there's nothing else in the world that matters at this point right now. It's the only thing, and that's great.
Maybe the wine. Jimmy, our producer, Jimmy, show this. So I looked up the wine. How cool are these bottles that you can order, and they've got pretty good reviews. This is a 3 out of 5. Show the other bottle. This is I guess close to a 4 out of 5 review. I don't remember.
And you're going to be able to get this through Amazon or wine.com. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think wine.com. But
really?
I went to I just Googled Georgia, the country wine, and this showed up. So we'll see. All right, that's enough, Jimmy. But I'll look for
nice.
I'm gonna order a bottle of Georgia wine somehow.
Salud.
And then I'll show it to everybody once it arrives. Possibly, I suppose it might take a while to get sent, depending on how this all works. So yeah, so huge stuff with the Euros. The one that you mentioned, England, I thought this Opta stat was pretty funny. Phil Foden, who actually left because he's having a baby apparently, but Phil Foden has passed the ball more times to goalkeeper Jordan Pickford than he has Harry Kane. I thought that is like, if that doesn't tell you everything about the way they've looked, I mean, there it is.
They're terrible. I mean, it's good. They have so much talent, and they just play scared. I mean, they don't play up to the level of their talent. They don't let their talent play. The tactics are, I mean, I have a lot of British friends, and everybody's basically going bald, pulling their hair out on watching this team play. It's really sad because talent they've got maybe the best player in the world in Bellingham. They have maybe one of the top 3 top scorers in the world in Harry Kane. I mean, who else? I mean, Jesus, they got goal scorers galore, and they can't find ways of getting them the ball. I hated the fact that what was the game that they tied 1-1 that they scored the goal, huh?
Oh no, they tied the Netherlands to open, right? Didn't they?
I right now I can't even think because I wasn't prepared really to speak about England. But
too many games.
Yeah, but I mean, they went ahead and they went ahead and they were up 1-0, and they had been playing great, high pressing, everything looked good, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got to go defend it, and then they just stopped playing the same way, and it's like, what are you doing? It's crazy, and maybe their coach will figure it out, Southgate, but I sort of doubt it because coaches are very, very stubborn when it comes to stuff like that, right, Glenn?
Yeah. But they won the group. So they won the group. And now you just here's the deal. And we're going to get to Copa America and the U.S. men's national team. I want to cover New York City FC first, or we do, a little bit since we were at training today and we got a chance to sit with Nick and listen to Keaton. The progress, and I don't know, I suppose you could say England hasn't made much progress throughout the tournament, but now they have their chance, and I'm still not going to discount the fact that they might be able to pull it together. How about France? France has been underwhelming, right? I mean, they're the pre-tournament favorite, boy. And England certainly was, if not the favorite, was odds on, along with the host nation, Germany. Spain has looked good.
They talked up England a lot, for sure. Yeah. The first game was against Denmark, by the way. That was a game that they everybody. So funny. England has 5 points. Denmark 3, Slovenia 3, and Serbia with 2. So Serbia is definitely out. I think Slovenia actually made it with 3 points. So the best.
We got to look that up. If Eddie is there,
I have it here. I have it here now. So Georgia is the best third place team. All Netherlands right. number 2, Slovakia number 3, Slovenia number 4. They qualify. Hungary and Croatia are out.
Wow. Yeah, Croatia was so Slovakia and
Slovenia.
How about Serbia? Did you say Serbia in there? Serbia's out.
Serbia's out. Serbia is definitely out. They only have 2 points.
So Mić Ilinić gets to dance around. He must be collecting on some sort of a wager with Jovan Mijatovic and Tanasijevic. The 2 Serbians. So
no, Tanasijevic didn't bother. He said that Tanasijevic, I think, was asleep or something like that. He made mention that it's really just between him and Mijatovic.
Well, that doesn't. He didn't watch it, but that doesn't mean there isn't a wager, right?
Or it didn't seem like that.
Boy, that's boring. You got to have a wager, man, of some sort. You got to pick me up next practice. I don't know.
Unless we're getting a gambling contract to sponsor this, I'm against gambling.
No,
So if Fanatics decides to come in, Fanatics, was it Bet.com or one of those decides to come in and sponsor us, and I might change my mind.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about betting like you have to make my bed tomorrow morning or something.
I get it. I know what you're talking about, Glenn.
All right, 1 win in their first 7 games, and they won 8 out of 9, and now they've lost 3 in a row. So what the hell is going on, Roberto? New York City FC.
All right, my take on it. Took them about 7 to 8 games to get their act together. Everybody's starting to learn who's who, how they play. Who's best, who's not, who works best with everybody. And then they won 8 out of 9. And the last 3 that they've lost, if we can look at these games individually, we can see, there's not a huge pattern. But the first one, the red card definitely affects them against a very good team, the Columbus Crew. Then we also get pro referee saying, oops, sorry, we made a mistake on a penalty. Never should have done that. So I don't know how that changes the game, but it probably changes it. Could have wound up worse, could have wound up better. Then they go to LA, and they defensively, and I don't mean the defense, but defensively, team-wise, they gave up 2 really bad goals, one on a terribly errant pass, and then one allowing a counterattack. That was, give LA credit, that was a really good counterattack. So they get their 2 goals there. Offensively, they did almost nothing. And then in the third game, a little bit more of the same theme of what went on offensively. They didn't do much, and another defensive mistake winds up costing them a goal. So the way I looked at the LA game and the game against Nashville, it was basically sort of playing with house money a little bit, playing a little bit on the road, maybe not a lot of expectations. Let's get our center forwards going. And we're going to go, and we're just going to go bet on our center forwards, and we're going to try to start them, try to give them a boost.
Yeah.
And we're going to do what we can to put them in there, and to maybe we can get them going. And this is really going to help. It was an investment to the future. And it just didn't work. And it didn't work for the first game, and it didn't work for the second game. And they tried to salvage it best as they could late. And they had their opportunities, but they weren't able to do it. So I think in my mind, it was an investment of, the road's never easy to win, although the team had done well in their previous road games, had won 3 in a row. But this is what they were going to bet on. I'm trying to get everybody on the team on the same page and trying to get everybody going, especially Bakrar and Mijatovic, the guys who they spent money on to bring in this year to be the center forwards.
Well,
it's not working. And it's just not working.
Yeah, Bakrar started both games. The team was terrible at LA. So let's not even, striker experimentation or trying to get your striker going. Sure, you're trying to do that. But that was it was a poor performance all the way around. A 0.80. That was your expected goals for. So anything below, it sounded like from what kind of Nick was referring to today, anything below, 1.2, 1.3 is, is in a way unacceptable, or certainly not what they're looking for. They had a 1.32 expected goals in the Nashville match, and I thought Matty Lawrence described the Nashville goal to perfection after the call. The one thing I had on it, if you look back at it, is Micha Ilinic, who he had a rugged game. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Absolutely.
Even though he's celebrating Slovenia now, getting to the round of 16 in the Euros, but all he had to do was shepherd the ball, see out the ball and he used his body wonderfully on a through ball to Sam Surridge, and I don't know why he tried to play it out wide, or I don't know what he was thinking at that point, because every defender is taught, and the ball was rolling at a fast enough pace where all you had to do is see it out, get the goal kick, and then everybody calm down. So it was a really, really massive mistake, I think, right there initially. Then it's like Keaton Parks misses a tackle. Ilinic misses a tackle. Kevin O'Toole is out desired, you have to say it, by Tyler Boyd. And Matt Freese from 7 yards out, it was a really solid, not precise, it was right at Freese, but it had a lot of pace, that header. But Freese, we've seen him make that save.
Well, he did get his hand on it. It just, he couldn't put it over the bar. He definitely got his hand on it. It just wasn't enough to be able to put it over the bar.
Well, first of all, he got two hands on it. Second of all, his hands were a little bit. If you're watching this, you're taught like this. It's what they call it, the W, right? So his hands were a little far apart, and they were down in here, and he tried to get it up here. It was just one of those where I think technically, look, it all happened in a split second for him, but we've seen him make that save. That's my point. So you had really 5 calamitous moments, if you call Freese calamitous. Maybe that's unfair.
I think a little bit, yeah.
Well, he should have saved it. How's that? So we had 5 moments. I got to get my 5 moments. We'll give it 4. If we take Freese out of the equation, we have 4 calamitous moments, and there's the goal. And then nothing happening at the other end to make up for it. So
I look at the Freese thing and it maybe in a slightly different way. I think that if he makes a save, and maybe he's capable of doing that, it's an outstanding, incredible reaction. Save that. I mean, maybe he's spoiled us a little bit, Glenn. But the fact was that header from that distance at that pace.
Okay, 8 yards.
That distance, I think it was closer, actually.
No, it wasn't. I've watched the replay about 200 times. Nick said today in our pregame 4 yards. I didn't correct him. I'm just saying it was 7 or 8 yards. Okay, but go ahead.
Okay, but anyway, so the way I look at it, and I've seen the replay a lot as well, it just is, maybe we've become accustomed to seeing him make incredible saves, but I don't know if I'm going to say that it's a goalie mistake by allowing the goal.
Okay. Let's get past that. And I also don't want to belabor this point too much, other than to say we haven't seen them give up a goal. Like, I know the James Sands giveaway leading the opening goal in LA, that's something. But I haven't seen a goal like this where there's like this multitude of errors going on in a sequence. New York City hasn't done that in a long time. So that was the most disturbing part for me. So they need to get that back together.
That's fine. I don't disagree with that. I mean, that hasn't that definitely hasn't happened a lot. So it's just sort of weird.
Now you talked about the strikers. So Moncef Bakrar, 1 goal in over 1,000 minutes. The other 2 strikers are Alonso Martinez and Jovan Mijatovic. So I asked Nick Cushing today, because he's been talking about trying to maybe give somebody a more consistent run, what was going on in that department now. So here's Nick after practice today.
Naturally, that's what's happened, right? We've rotated in the moments where maybe an injuries came or suspensions came, or maybe we felt like form needs to be, maybe players need to be taken out or put in. And I think those guys are fighting hard. And, as a support staff with myself as the decision maker, we'll come to a decision of, with these next 2 games, we're going to go run with somebody that we feel can, really put up some numbers and really give the team the best chance of scoring goals.
So, if you didn't have to read too much between the lines there, whoever starts tomorrow night Is it tomorrow night? No, Friday night. Is
Friday
it
night.
Wednesday? Whoever starts Friday night at Yankee Stadium against Orlando is going to get the start midweek against Montreal the next week for the home match before they go off on this July road trip. So that is whoever gets it is getting the run. I'm going to doubt that it's Bakar, so that leaves Alonso Martinez and Jovan Mijatovic. We don't know who's going to be in the 11. We don't know who's starting at striker, but the one guy who has scored 6 goals, Martinez, the other guy, Mijatovic, 0. You just wonder if Martinez will get the shot. Or
you mean the guy who scores a goal every 80 minutes?
That guy. Although here's the other way to look at it. 4 of his 6 goals have been off the bench. So
that is true. Including the hat trick. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's 3 of the 4. Yeah, that's part of the 4 goals. Yeah.
That's why I said including, not excluding. I said including.
No, you made it sound like, well, yeah, but 3 of them happened in 11 minutes, and they did. You're right.
They did. But he's also looked more dynamic, and he seems, I don't know, the team, depending who they put on the wings with him, if that's who starts, I mean, it just looks a lot more dynamic offensively. It just does. It looks like, and especially at home. And it's not, it's not an easy game, although, Orlando, before the fact that they beat Chicago 4-2, which is not a great team, although Chicago had been playing better. But Orlando hadn't been playing very well before they won that game.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting game for sure. Friday night at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, and then the Mijatovic factor too. I think we're giving him a run is probably somewhere in there as far as a consideration too. So
let me ask you a question, Glenn.
Yeah.
Why don't they give him a run, a really good run with NYCFC too? He's 18 years old. Put him down there. Let him play there and get some minutes because the thing that I noticed between playing with NYC and playing with NYCFC 2 is basically that he plays the same way and he has the same situation. He's got to be more involved, and they got to find ways of getting him more involved. And so he's got to figure out ways of being more involved. It's not just about how everybody can play to him, but what can he do to make sure that he gets the ball? And so he's got to figure this out. And I figure that, at his age, with the minutes that he needs to get, and especially if you have Martinez playing the way he's playing in the position, although allegedly it wasn't, the real position for him, but he's hybrid very well into that position. Then fine. Then do that. There was another stat that I had on Martinez, by the way, that I wanted to share with you.
So
that I thought pretty outstanding. You know that he's got a 79% shot accuracy? 79% of his shots go on goal.
Well, that's as someone told me years ago when it was a goal scorer, and he said the best goal scorers in the world put their shots on goal, period.
Yes.
And it's like it's almost too simple, but it's the truth. Because then anything can happen. So Mijatovic, 31 minutes as a reserve against Nashville. And let's see. I don't believe he got a shot. No, he didn't get a shot off in over a half hour of play. He didn't appear. He was an unused sub in L.A. He was an unused sub against Columbus. He played 58 minutes off the bench against San Jose. And we know about that game. And got 1 shot. He started that game. Forgive me. He played the first 58 minutes, and he left when it was 1-1, and then New York City wins the game 5-1. I meant to make that point in reverse. So that's the Mijatovic story so far.
All right. Well, the Bakar story is this. He's got 42 shots. You want to take a shot at how many are in frame? What percentage?
Well, it was 30-something and 10 for a while. Then it got up to 12, and I'll stick with 12.
Well, anyway, according to this, okay, and I'm looking at FOTMob, he has a 50% shot accuracy.
Oh, you don't have the numbers like?
It just says 42 shots, so that would be 21. 21 on goal.
Ooh, he doesn't have 21 shots on goal, but I don't think. But we'll go with FOTMob. That's our favorite little device. So
yeah. And, I don't know if this is 21 or not, but this is what it looks like on the – did I just, of course, press the wrong button? All right, this is what it looks like on the
wow.
chart.
Yeah. And the one goal is the key in there.
Yes. It was a great goal, by the way. Fantastic
winner.
goll and a huge goal to beat the Red Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, on that alone, he could live almost all year.
Well, I know we've said it during the course of this road trip. Probably surprised that he started at Nashville, but it would be pretty shocking if he's in the lineup against Orlando. Now, another guy who has played 6 minutes. We haven't seen him since the opener at Charlotte. We understand there have been some injury considerations along the way. But Tylus Magno, he's fit enough to play. He was on this road trip and wasn't in the squad for either game. So the question I had for Nick as part of the pregame briefing, we're going to hear the clip now, and it'll be on the pregame show coming up Friday night, is from the outside looking in, it looks like the writing's on the wall for him, but here's Nick.
No secret, right? Ultimately, it's really simple that we have a really competitive roster here, and you can see across our front line that with Agu and Malachi and Hannes and Julian, that it's really competitive and there's a lot of competition getting into the team. Andres Jason wasn't getting into the team and isn't here because he found an opportunity. Telles, there is no secret. He just hasn't played any football this year. He got the injury, which was unfortunate at the start of the year, and there's a lot of competition. And if you look across, I lost Kevin O'Toole, so Christy McFarlane has to go on the bench because Kevin O'Toole comes back and is off the back of a hamstring. Tane has to be on the bench because Thiago Martins was injured, and then Keaton Parks is on 4 yellow cards, Andres Pereira is on 4 yellow cards, so Justin Hack has to be ready to go in because this is all part of having a competitive roster, and ultimately you can only name 9 subs, and when you haven't played any football and you are working back to getting rhythm and getting your real feel and getting momentum in the team, is a natural decision to put those guys that are already in.
Can he compete his way to more time still? Does he have that opportunity?
This is what he's doing every day. He's training incredibly well. He's incredibly motivated. He is, of course, disappointed. But every day in training, everybody is competing with everybody to be in the team. And the game changes fast, right? A suspension. Like I say, Keaton and Andres Pereira still on 4 yellow cards. None of our number 9s are really putting up numbers yet. There is a lot of ups and a lot of downs in a football season, and everybody is involved within that.
So, he claims that Magno still can compete his way into some playing time, but it also sounds like that would a lot of things would have to happen, probably mostly on the injury side, to either Fernandez or Wolf or Malachi Jones or
Ojeda.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's a lot of competition for playing time, and we think that Wolf basically has one position down. And that's pretty much cemented. And then you've got 3 other guys for one playing spot. And a lot of those guys who deserve time. I mean, Julian Fernandez has been playing very, very well, and he can't seem to get himself on the field. Ojeda's been playing very well, and he gets spots started. I mean, all these guys are competing and playing, and to say nothing about Malachi Jones, who every time he comes into the game, he's been a fantastic super sub. And he just loves to go at players, and the team seems to love that. So, it's when Tylus from last year and the 6 minutes that he got this year just didn't seem to have it in the same way that these guys have had it. Maybe he needs time for sure. I mean, we believe that he's still a world-class talent, but he's going to need to show it. I don't know how he's going to get up. How he's going to be able to, to jump these rings.
Yeah, but wait a minute. You said something about, he's played it's 19 games in and he's played 6 minutes, Roberto.
No, I know, but he can't get him. He can't get himself on the field because the other guys are still ahead of him.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm saying is that there's really one spot open. You've got 3 guys.
No, it's like. Right now, it's 2 platoon on either wing, and you've got the 4 guys set, and Magno can't get break through there. But that's kind of a statement too. I mean, we've seen him in training; he's fine. He's Magno, so he's Magno from what we can tell. With the Magno that we saw when he first came, from what we can tell, and we see training once a week. So he's Magno. So Magno, from what we used to know, can't get in the squad. You can't tell me that I'm not saying he's not competing and doesn't have a chance. I wouldn't say that, and I don't think Nick Cushing would allow him to put it in like that without having an opportunity if he deserves it and it comes up someday. I'm just saying, it doesn't appear like he's in their plans. Let's put it that way. And you got a transfer window coming up.
Right.
We know that Andres Jason has gone off to Denmark, and he kind of stimulated that because he wanted to play. So his agent,
Right.
They found a team that wanted him, and New York City complied. So, will the same thing happen with Magno? And I don't know. Yeah.
And by the way, while we're on the subject, happy birthday, Talis.
Today's Tyler Magno's birthday. Well, happy birthday. Either way, happy birthday. So he's 22?
Yes. I believe so.
Yeah, I think he's 22.
I believe, and his whole family was there. Dad, his brother, there was a whole bunch of people there. And I hope he has a good day. I really do. I mean, I'd love for him to be able to perform to the level that New York City expected him to perform and to contribute. But if not, then I hope that they find a good place for him to be able to break out and be the player that he's supposed to be. Sometimes these things don't work out, and it might work out better for him someplace else. So we'll see.
All right. Jay Blaze 23, a regular viewer here. Welcome back. Just going back to Stryker, for instance, he's a real Jovan fan, says, I believe in Jovan. I'm just not sure he's ready. And like Roberto said, give him 4 weeks with NYCFC 2. NYCFC 2, I saw Matt Pilkington at the facility today. A couple of things. Number one, they haven't played in a while. So he would have no games to play in right now. They're in a little bit of a lull. But you know what they did last week, Roberto? I can't remember if I shared this with you. I just happened to be on the phone with someone who was watching it at the facility. The 2 team scrimmaged against Colombia. Colombia trained for 5 days in Orangeburg at the New York City facility while they were on this road trip. And the 2 team got a chance to scrimmage them. Matt and his assistant said, yeah, we got hammered, but man, it was quite an experience.
I can imagine. Yeah, no, I did know that had happened. And by the way, those nice little canopies that we had today that got us out of the sun, thank you, Colombia. And we're not talking about university. We're talking about the Colombian national team.
Colombia.
Who was like probably between them and Argentina and maybe Uruguay, the 3 favorites to win Copa America.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. Somebody put Canada in the semifinals today, and I've got to look at that a little bit more closely. So what I'd like to say about Canada, just briefly, is that they played Peru last night, and that was the worst soccer match I've watched in I don't know how long. I turned it off right before the red card, I guess. And then I know Canada scored. I don't even care how they scored. Terrible, terrible soccer match. Shame on both sides, the way they played. And Canada's blaming Peru, and Peru's blaming Canada. It was just a shite match, man. Terrible. Terrible.
I really didn't get to watch it, so I don't know. I just know that Peru had I know that Peru had a red card, and then Canada scored a really good goal, by the way, by my favorite Canadian player, which is Jacob Schaffelberg.
All right, who cares?
Thanks a lot. What do you mean, who cares?
What you should care about is that the next game had 82,000 at MetLife, and that Nick Cushing actually talked about. I asked him about Copa and Euros, and Jimmy, if you have this one ready, let's just play this. I wonder what's his what moment has stood out for him. If you can find it, Jimmy.
Maybe he wasn't ready for that.
I'll give you a hint. It was Argentina-Chile. He really loved watching that match. He said it's his favorite match that he's viewed out of all of them, which I found pretty interesting.
I only got to see part of the second half of that game, and it was a lot of fun. Chile played back and looking to counter, and they were very dangerous. And I got to tell you,
he said other than Italy, Spain in the Euros, because that was a tactical masterclass too, just fun to watch. But he really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, but Emma Martinez is the real deal in goal for Argentina.
Well, Argentina played their first match against Canada and won 2-0, and they played at Mercedes-Benz. And here's the Argentinian goalkeeper after this match. He put out ESPN FC put out a tweet, and it was a quote from Emmy regarding the surface. Jimmy, let's put that tweet up, please. And there it is. The state of the pitch was a disaster, very bumpy. We must improve in this aspect. Otherwise, Copa America will always appear at a lower level than the European Championship. And here, both events are occurring at the same time. And the big focus after this match was the pitch at Mercedes-Benz, which, according to the coach, let's see what that quote is exactly. Anyway, that it was laid only 2 days before the game was played.
We spoke about that in the last in our last podcast.
Oh, did we? Okay.
But, yeah, we did. But now it's been laying there for basically a week. It should be a lot better. So Greg Berhalter spoke about the surface, which is basically the same system, right? Because AT&T Stadium is also a synthetic field, and they put grass on top. I don't know how much in advance they did, but he said that the field there was excellent. So we're hoping that now that maybe that the field had a chance to take and everything, that it was a lot better. I didn't hear any complaints about the field last night at MetLife because it's basically the same thing, football stadium, and they put grass on, but I don't know
how about these fields? So we learned this in Copa America because there's a lot of games are being played in NFL stadiums like MetLife, and those that are hosting the World Cup, MetLife's going to host the final in 26. They're going to take out 2,000 seats and make sure that the field is 75 yards wide. But right now it's only 70. SoFi Stadium is less than that. Who am I leaving out here? Oh, and then we've got Sporting KC, this beautiful soccer park with wonderful dimensions, and they shrink it on purpose so that it's sort of in Copa America compliance with the NFL.
Yankees stadium size.
I can't believe they would shrink Sporting KC Stadium just because football stadiums can't. And here's what Tab Ramos put out. Ramos, I should pronounce it.
Thank you.
There. He games at SoFi Stadium should be 9 versus 9. I love that. So I agree with you, Tab. I just I find it I find it crazy that they're doing. Why play it on these fields?
Oh, there's a reason why they're playing on these fields. Come on, Glenn. Why? Because they can fit 80,000 people in.
One game got 80,000. All the other attendances have been, shall I use that word again in German? Not good. They could have played all those in MLS ballparks.
No. That's not true either. That's not true. So the U.S. played when in the U.S. game, they half filled AT&T, but AT&T holds 90,000 people if you pack it to the rafters. They got a very good crowd of over 47,000. There is no soccer-specific field that holds 47,000. And then the other one, which was Miami, they had, what was it, like 35 or 38,000 for two countries that don't have 8 million in population together. So and that was Panama and Uruguay. So come on, I mean, to get 30 whatever thousand for that game in Miami is damn respectable, especially with some of these prices being ridiculously inflated. You know how much the cheapest ticket was last night for? How much?
1,000?
No, it was $365, which is still outrageous.
Yeah.
And then not only that, parking's $80. It's like it is such a money grab.
No, I'm not. I won't dispute the money factor. I get freaking blinded by sporting. I care about the God blessed game and how it's played and where it should be played and the size of the field, the quality of the surface. I don't give a flying F about the money that's made by CONMEBOL. But by the way, CONMEBOL, this is great, right? This is great for the media. The media had to pay $80 to park. Okay, now people watching might go, "Oh, you guys are, you're sheltered, you're spoiled, all this other stuff." Well, we're actually covering the game and promoting the product. That's right. Our job. That's part of our job. And food, you had to $25 for a hot dog in one of the facilities. $50 for a hamburger in one of the facilities. I don't know which was which. I think SoFi had the biggest prices. And it was $95 to park at SoFi, and I think it was $50 You could get either a hamburger, a hot dog, or a slice of pizza or something, whatever the hell it was. Come on, man. So I get blinded by the sporting side, Roberto. So you're right. They make a lot more money in the bigger stadiums, and the field was unbelievable at Mercedes. Yeah, the grass could take down. They put the grass down 2 days before the event.
I have to report one thing, though, because a friend of mine, one of my very good friends, Andrew Sarate, went to the game in Atlanta between Argentina and Canada. And he said that in that stadium, food was Atlanta United prices and Atlanta Falcon prices, which means everything was street prices. Sodas were like $2.50, free refills. They still maintain that. Arthur Blank, bless this man, for making sure that the fans don't get screwed over in Atlanta. Seriously, bless this man.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, Roberto. Hey, before we get to kicking it around, we have the Brad Sims interview, CEO and president of New York City FC. Roberto and I sat with him in Nashville for about 25 minutes. Some really good stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. And we'll get to that in a moment. But we really should talk about the United States of America and their performance thus far in Copa America. And tomorrow night, they have a pretty huge match against Panama,
yes,
who I thought looked, beyond respectable in their match against Brazil.
They looked very, very good against Uruguay, I believe.
Uruguay.
Yeah, they look really, really good because Uruguay is a really good team and it's one of the favorites to win this thing. And Uruguay had their chances, but Panama, I give them credit for coming out and playing. They didn't sit back, which they have every right to, but they didn't, and they played, and they had a lot of chances to tie that game before Uruguay got 2 late goals to make it 3-0, and then they got one back, which I was happy for them because I think they deserve that. And it also, it makes a difference because now, as far as the tiebreak is concerned, it's still their +2 in goal difference. U.S. is +2, but they have the second tiebreaker, which is they have 3 goals. The U.S. has 2. And the U.S. basically screwed themselves because they created enough chances. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Also, credit to the Bolivian goalkeeper, who I thought played very, very well.
So let's set the table here. If Panama and the U.S. draw, and then Panama beats Bolivia, and the U.S. loses to Uruguay, the U.S. is out, correct?
Depending on goal difference and goal score, yes.
Well, but goal difference and goal scoring would be
Panama only has 1 goal right now, and they're -2. U.S. is +2, so they would have to beat Bolivia handily, like 5-1, 5-0,
okay. Right.
And then the U.S. would have to lose, handily to Uruguay. So no, it's a massive game tomorrow night at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They've got to win. The U.S. to basically put an end to this and not have to worry about, if they beat or lose Uruguay. They shouldn't have to care. And then after that, it is most likely either Colombia or Brazil in the quarters. Yeah. Fun.
All right, my math is I'm still freaking overridden by field size, so I'm so therefore and henceforth my math is off. So thank you for clarifying that, Roberto. I think it's going to be a difficult match for the U.S. I think the Fox, I believe I put this in our group chat, is I couldn't believe the Fox studio hosts, how they were completely disregarding Panama and moving on to the third match for the U.S. against Uruguay without even considering the fact that Panama could beat the U.S. And that's not going to be like a massive shocker if it happens. I love when people write articles and then they have the comment section, whether it's Soccer America, The Athletic, and there was one comment, I don't remember which publication, and so then you read the supporters' comments. One on social media that came through was, quote, this was the U.S. 2-0 win over Bolivia. Lucky we were playing against a mid-level college team. People are harsh sometimes. People are very harsh. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that.
84 in the world, worst team in CONMEBOL. They're number 84 in the world. And they haven't had a significant victory in Copa America, I think, since 2015 was the stat, if I heard that right, on Fox. I just want to talk a little bit about the Panama. Okay, so the U.S. has a very good record history-wise against Panama, but they was in the semifinals of the Gold Cup, and they beat the U.S. in penalty kicks. But the U.S. was using their alternative lineup throughout that entire tournament. So the U.S. started that game with Turner in goal, Reynolds, Robinson, Long, and DeJuan Jones on defense, Bucio, Sands, and Mihailovic in midfield. And the forward line was Cade Cowell on one side, Jesus Ferreira on the other, and Brandon Vasquez in the middle. So, and coming off the bench was Yedlin, Roldan, Miazga, Morris, Tolkien, and Gressel. So that was the team for the U.S. It wasn't the A team that lost that game in penalty or tied the game and then lost in penalty kicks. Before that, they had played in World Cup qualifying, and the U.S. beat Panama 5-1, and that game was held in Exploria Stadium at that time, which is, I guess, Orlando. So, and before that, Panama had beaten the U.S. 1-0 in Panama in a World Cup qualifier with a goal by Andibal Godoy from Nashville SC. So, lately it's been very close in the last 18 games, 11 by the U.S., 2 by Panama, and 5 ties. But I expected to be.
I was actually at that. I was at that match at Exploria, the 5-1 match.
Okay.
Covering for Sirius XM, and it was Christian Pulisic had quite a game, and he's the man now, man. He's the man. But that's 2021, so it's 3 years ago. The U.S. thinks they're better now. I don't know. I think Clint Dempsey kind of put it best. He's like, there were two things that Clint Dempsey said in the pregame before the Bolivia match. One was there were some clips from the players like Pulisic and Ream, and I'm trying to remember the players that were so very supportive of and probably got Berhalter rehired in part anyway because of their support. And Pulisic said, Greg, we'd run through a brick wall for Greg. And Clint Dempsey said his comment was, well, let's see it. Haven't seen it yet. I thought that was brilliant. I haven't seen that yet. And so, that some of that will be coming up soon, whether they will or won't,
Yeah, it's interesting. Looking at the team that won that game 5-1, only one, let's see, 1, 2, 3 starters. 3 starters on this actual team, which is Jedi Robinson, Tyler Adams, and Christian Pulisic started and played that game.
All right. So all the other guys have been cut, or too old?
No, not that they've been cut, but they're not available at this point. I'm trying to see. So the other guys were Shaq Moore, Zimmerman, Robinson. Cut. Oh, Musa was there, so Musa's a starter. Okay, De La Torre, Areola, and Ferreira.
Areola's out. Ferreira's out.
Yeah.
Walker Zimmerman's playing with the U23s.
Yeah. And then off the bench, Acosta, Reyna, Long, Bucio, and Morris.
So 4 out of those 5 aren't part of the team anymore either. So.
Yeah. It's a different team. It's supposed to be a much better team. Yeah. So we'll see. But this Panama team is a much better team. Well, I mean, the way that they played, I was really impressed. All right. Everybody who just likes to poop on CONCACAF all the time. There's a lot of teams in CONCACAF that have gotten better. Canada's gotten a hell of a lot better. Obviously, the U.S., Panama has gotten better. You see Costa Rica now starting to develop a new team. They're the youngest team in the tournament. If Jamaica could ever get all their players together to play, but their organization is worse than Canada's. So, they're not getting paid, to come over. They're paying their own trips. I mean, it's just a nightmare for Jamaica. But talent-wise, they've gotten a lot better as well. So, we got to see what's going to transpire. But CONCACAF's gotten better, which is part of the reason why Mexico, which hasn't gotten better, has now fallen and keeps on falling and struggling with a lot of these teams.
All right, good. Well, that's part of our last time we were on live. It was right before the U.S. Bolivia game. Now we got to wait 24 hours. It'll kick off at 6 p.m. Eastern. We've got Copa games tonight right after us. But first, let's go kicking it around with Brad Sims. All right, I hope you've all hung out long enough to catch this. We are live on NYCFC Views. My name is Glenn Crooks, Roberto Abramowitz, your NYCFC radio commentators. And we've been there since the first kick, so we've watched all the different development. And the first president that we knew was Tim Pernetti, who was my athletic director at Rutgers University when I was the coach there. And it's gone from there. And Brad Sims, he got thrown into the mix of finalizing the stadium, which, it's obviously a proud moment for him and the rest of the club. And so, Roberto, we got a chance to sit down with Brad and ask him some poignant questions, some obvious questions. And I think he was pretty upfront with some of his responses. And then when this is done, I think we should reconvene and react a little bit to what he said. You game for that?
Right. I'm ready, but also people, you have a chance to, in the comments, to be able to chime in as well. Jay Blaze 23 has figured it out. You guys can figure it out as well. So he's doing it through YouTube. So try through there. Go watch it on YouTube and comment in over there, and we'll see the comments and we'll share some of them.
Or you could tweet us or X us.
Do that too.
Yeah, we'll look at that too. All right. So here we go from Saturday, the morning of game day against Nashville over the weekend on June the 22nd. Our conversation with New York City FC CEO and President Brad Sims. Publicly convened that we don't bring up the stadium first, and I guess this is our first chance to publicly congratulate you on job well done and completion. I guess the next step is, when are you going to be able to hold the shovel and get the photo op and throw it into the ground?
Yeah, well, first, good to see you guys from hot Nashville. It's a beautiful day. I mean, it's been a great run with the stadium, right? It's been going back to the beginning of the Euler process, just the overwhelming support. I mean, every kind of step along the way was fantastic, and so to kind of get that wrapped up at City Hall with the City Council vote and the mayor then formally kind of blessing it to move on was fantastic. Shortly after that, there's a second process with what's called the 384B4, which essentially approval of the lease terms with the city that had to go through the Queensborough president and the Queensborough board. That was approved also, and so essentially after that approval, there is a 120-day wait period for us to formally get the lease, or actually for in this case Queens Development Group to formally get the lease, and then we are a subtenant for them. So we have to wait that period of time to actually formally get shovels in the ground, so to speak, which will be mid-September. I don't have the exact date on me. You guys, Chris Campbell from Outfield, I'm sure he'll know it. Yeah. I think so I think hopefully targeting sometime mid to late September to have that kind of ceremonial event. But as you guys have seen, if you've been out to the site, I mean, stuff is happening. Work has been going on, prepping the site, getting ready, everything that can be done before you actually formally start getting piles in the ground. All that kind of stuff is happening now.
Does that affect the timetable of when the stadium actually is going to open?
Nope. Yeah, we've always been kind of beginning of the 27 season, and that remains the time frame. It's once you really get shovels in the ground, it's always been about a 30-month build. So if we can get going in late September, that give you a timeline of March, and so that's about what we're looking at.
I wanted to ask, I had a friend, Dr. Rick Eckstein, years ago wrote a book about stadiums. They were built supposedly with private funding, then somehow the public started having to pay for it, and then there were promises that the community would be rewarded with jobs, and he just set forth all these examples, not necessarily soccer stadiums, but
sure,
that didn't really provide the sort of opportunities that were maybe promised. So what assurances does the community have with this project?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that ours is completely different because we're not using that public funding. So, and we're one of the very, very few stadiums or arenas or any kind of professional sports venues in North America that is fully privately financed. So, I mean, I don't know the exact number. I think you can probably count on one hand. So it's a very unique structure for kind of sports stadia.
Right.
And all the credit to our ownership group and their stakeholders for making that huge commitment to make it happen and to make it happen within the 5 boroughs. Because as I think everyone probably knows that. Obviously, we've been looking for a stadium for quite some time, and if we were willing to move outside of the 5 boroughs, we would have had a stadium done a long time ago, and it would have been much less expensive, and probably would have had municipalities would have been happy to kind of chip in some of their dollars as well. But doing business in the city of New York, is a little bit different situation, and it was not only on us to come with a fully privately financed and backed stadium project, but also to provide more community benefits, to provide jobs, to commit to union labor, and the list goes on, which we are all happy and proud to do. And again, all the credit to our ownership group for making such a significant investment and statement about our intent to be in the 5 boroughs, to be a team for the city, and to have this amazing home for our players, for our fans, for decades and decades to come, and to really get that dream of the first ever soccer specific stadium built in the 5 boroughs.
As the team gets closer in 25, 26, 27 to start playing there, are there any plans to migrating more games to Queens to get people more, what's the word that I'm looking for, more used to being in Queens as opposed to the Bronx?
Yeah, I think, we've been doing that, right? So, I mean, in going back even to kind of pre-pandemic, and the original plan for the 2020 season was to have a 4-game Citi Field series there in Queens. And so coming out of the pandemic, when we, back in 22, we started, looking at having games at Citi Field in Queens, ramped it up, I would say, a little bit more, last year and this year. But reality is, it comes down to the Major League Baseball schedules and the MLS schedule, and with FIFA breaks and the Leagues Cup, break and all, it's just, for us, this year is challenging to get 17 date, and we actually weren't able to get fully 17 dates, right? As you guys know, in early October, we got both Mets and Yankees have MLB playoff holds on their schedule. So it was tough enough just to get those dates between using the totality of the Yankee schedule and the Mets schedule. So I guess in somewhat in an ideal world, yes, we would like to, play more games in Queens, but I think the reality is that for the next 2 seasons, 25 and 26, we'll probably have a similar split, roughly 2/3, 1/3 split of 2/3 of the games at Yankee Stadium, 1/3 at Citi Field, mostly just based on availability. Citi Field has lots of other commitments for concerts and other kind of events throughout the summer, and so there's just fewer dates available there. So I would anticipate probably a similar breakdown as we have this year.
When the stadium is built, and we know the Mets are there, you've got U.S. Open tennis, you might have potential concerts. There's multiple possibilities of more than one event on the day. Now, what's prescribed for that? What are the rules around that? Can you and the Mets play on the same day?
Yeah, we have an agreement with the Mets, and a lot of work went into this. They were great partners throughout the process, and they understood the predicament. Obviously, they don't want for their fans, nor would we want for our fans for it to be a crazy, challenging situation with events going on simultaneously, and neither of us would want it for the neighborhood. Obviously, now with our stadium, we're building a whole new neighborhood there that doesn't exist. So we have to be very sensitive to the residents of the neighborhood and local traffic and all of those things. So yeah, that was all taken in consideration in our agreement with the Mets, and then also in discussions with Community Board 7 and kind of the rest of the stakeholders throughout the Euler process. We will be able to play and have events on the same days. There's a buffer period, so trying to remember this right. If the Mets play in an afternoon game, if they play first, then we have to. There's like I think it's 7 hours. Don't quote me on this one. give or take about a 7-hour buffer period.
So it sounds like the soccer game is always going to be played first because of extra inning possibilities and things like that.
Well, I mean, these were the sensitivities on the Mets part. They're like, what if there's a 18-inning game? And I was like, well, there won't be that many people still there at the end of 18 innings, probably. Those people are super hardcore, and we won't have those traffic issues probably. For the one time every 3 years, there's an 18-inning game. But yeah. So, but just the average time of a baseball game is longer than the average time of a soccer game. So, I think it's 7 hours. If they play first, it's 6 hours. If we play first. So if they have a 7 o'clock game, we could have a 1 o'clock game. If they have a 1 o'clock game, we could have an 8 o'clock game. Or obviously, when we get to those points, we'll have the discussions with Mets. If Apple says it has to be 7:30 and the league says 7:30 and the Mets are at 1, my guess is the Mets are good partners. That they'll be okay with it.
Will there be any cross-promotional stuff going on? Will the Mets be promoting New York City FC and vice versa?
Yeah, not contractually obligated, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, again, good partners. We're happy to kind of cross-promote their events, and I'm sure to some extent everyone coming to their events will have some visibility to what's going on in our events, with 8-story high LED cube, that's visible from the 7 train and the LIR and most of the City Field lots. We'll be, I'm sure, promoting upcoming events for our stadium, and they'll do the same, when they'll know when there's going to be events at our stadium, and they have tons of marquees and LED signage everywhere throughout City Field, on the exterior of City Field. So, I'm sure we'll be, promoting and cross-promoting, and everybody who's coming to events in the complex will be aware of future events that are going to be taking place in the complex as well.
Well, one of the things that you're going to have is going to be like an open area, right? That's going to be open even on non-game days. Is that for what I read, right?
So yeah, we have an area that we haven't really gone into too much detail publicly on yet, but there's like about a 40,000 square foot space, indoor, outdoor, that we have intentions of having it be very active and robustly programmed year round, not just on game days. It's going to be an amazing place on game days as well. More to come on that. We're actually going to be doing a release with more details and renderings of that space, probably late summer, early fall. So
the point I was getting to is that on Met game days that New York City isn't playing, that Met fans can actually go to an area where they'd be able to go before the game and hang out and before going
question.
Into City Field.
I think so. We do have those kind of considerations in our agreement with the Mets. So the idea is, the Mets have plenty of great spaces on the City Field property for pregame. Actually, our staff just had a staff outing at Mets game here a few weeks ago, and took full advantage of one of those pregame spots. And it was a great time for all of us. So I think that the Mets would want to keep their fans on their side of the street, and then on our game days, and we're going to have great opportunities for pregame, and we prefer to have our fans partake in those. So it's one of these situations where we're not going to go out of our way to try to profit off of one another. I think it's kind of this is part of a partnership that we understand what's important to them, they understand what's important to us. But I would say on non-game day events, non events where City Field's not open, away games, maybe away game watch parties for us. Mm-hmm. We're talking about things like could this be a place where we host farmers markets or there's a ton of different really cool applications for the spaces around our stadium that we're super excited about.
Brad Sims with us, CEO and President, New York City Football Club. I'm Glenn Crooks, along with Roberto Abramowitz. You mentioned Chris Campbell, the outfielder, earlier. So reading something that he published, we learned that the club is committed to a second professional team playing, I don't know if you can confirm this, but at the new stadium. And if so, how do you see that club being added?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I saw that, and I don't believe, based on our conversation, that we are contractually obligated to provide a second tenant. We have shared that we would like to, and maybe that's where kind of the committed, the kind of terminology committed would come into play. But we would like to have a second tenant there. I think that the size of the building would not. I think that maybe there's some opining going on about could our MLS Next Pro team play there. To me, that doesn't make sense. That size of building, any kind of like minor league team, whether that's team in another league or or whatever. To me, the size of the venue does not match up with the demand for those kind of products. I think.
But if you're looking at it from the sporting side, so if they had a choice of playing at Belson Stadium on artificial surface or playing on the beautiful grass field at whatever stadium, whatever it's going to be called, Etihad, are you committing to that?
Sponsor name stadium. Yes. I heard that maybe I think that was up there in one of the polls. That people seem to like that.
That's
good. Yeah.
But I mean, seriously.
So it's a good question.
What is the reluctance to put them on that field? Is it just
because
cost?
There's a couple of things. One would be we expect this to be a very busy building, and we're optimistic about having lots of other types of events. Whether that's first and foremost, I think will be the mecca of soccer in the United States, but definitely in the New York area. So I expect soccer first and foremost to be our focus in getting matches there, whether that's international friendlies, club and country type situations, U.S. men's national team, U.S. women's national team, etc. We want lots and lots of high quality soccer there, but then concerts and other events. I think that we will have success there. So all of those kind of any kind of other events are significantly profitable, can be significantly profitable, or at least profitable. A MLS Next Pro game, not profitable. Anyone else, it's something owned by us. If anyone where there's a tenant situation and they're paying rent and covering expenses, we can't lose on that deal. But when it's our own team and we're covering the expenses, and if the revenues can't cover the expenses, then that's bad business.
How about a U.S. Open Cup game involving the MLS Next Pro team?
Great question. I don't know if you're trying to pivot into getting me to talk about U.S. Open Cup.
Yes, I am actually.
We have that. We have that written down.
I mean, my anticipation would be that we would play U.S. Open Cup matches at our stadium for sure. And my anticipation would be that we have huge crowds for those games.
And with the first team or the second team?
Either.
All right.
Do you have a preference?
My preference. Oh, of course. Yeah, our preference would be the first team playing. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's out of our hands. But any competition that has a trophy, that has qualification to Champions Cup. I still like to call it Champions League, but Champions Cup is something that we're interested in competing in and trying to win. By the way, and if they decide,
it'd be nice to win with your first team and the coaches making the choice of which players could play in the game, don't you think?
Yes. I mean, to me, I feel like our first. I mean, in my opinion, would be that MLS teams and MLS Next Pro teams are able to participate, and then you set your roster, and they can't go back and forth. It's like this is your roster for MLS Next Pro, this is your roster for your MLS team, and you can't draw each other maybe until unless you got to the final or something like that. And something where you can't play each other, and you can't, but you just can't move rosters like once the competition starts. Because I'll tell you what a fantastic opportunity it was for our second team players to play in this tournament, and how great did they perform? I mean, what a run! I mean, they got as far as any of our first teams have done, and that was an incredible experience that they can't get anywhere else. There's no knockout tournaments like that. Experience, to play, potential penalty kicks, play extra time, play, higher quality competition away, and in Hartford and other places. So that was an incredible run. It was exactly what I would hope that our MLS Next Pro team can get in a competition like U.S. Open Cup. I would like our first team to also play in that competition, but I think it's unfortunate if it's one or the other because I think it was an incredible experience for our second team players, and I'm very happy that they had that experience.
How much are you going to lobby Don Garber on the fact that you want your first team to be able to play?
That's a good question. It's not really kind of how the process goes. It's a situation where if 30 team CEOs are knocking on Don Garber's door, there's a lot more at play and at stake here, which involves how our league and our teams and our brands are portrayed nationally through U.S. soccer broadcast channels or promotion or marketing. We pay for the players, the league pays for the players, and so to have other entities benefit disproportionately to the investment that we're making isn't really fair, quite honestly. And so I can there's broadcast partners that make significant investments in the league that then cannot benefit from that, and someone who's not an entity that's not making any investment in the players and the brand and the league brand and the club brand, and also then on top of it not really making an investment and making it a really great tournament operationally, from a broadcast standpoint, from a attendance standpoint. These games are very meekly attended. Even a club like we play at Belson because the economics wouldn't make sense to play at Yankee Stadium. But even a team like the Red Bulls, who own their own stadium, play at Montclair because they know that they'll be embarrassed if they try and host a U.S. Open Cup game at Red Bull Arena. And so I understand.
But part of that is promoting the U.S. Open Cup as if it were an important event. Wouldn't you agree? Over the years of following the sport here,
that's not just on. That can't be falling just on the teams when they get no benefit out of it.
Right.
And it can't fall on the league, the MLS, when they get absolutely zero benefit out of it. So the only entities that get benefit really out of the U.S. Open Cup is U.S. Soccer and the lower division teams that get to have their brand associated with higher level teams that have nothing to lose. They can, these things. That's where all the value lies in the U.S. Open Cup.
I get all that, but I'm looking at things simply like that. That's promoting the game. It's promoting the game in the country. I
agree with that, and that's why I'm in favor of us playing in it. But but that's really the only argument is be a good guy. That's. And we live in the real world. That's not how things work. Economics are important, and how brand perception is important, and it can be fixed. And I think it can be fixed, and I think it can be addressed. And that's what MLS and U.S. Soccer are having those conversations. JT at U.S. Soccer is very, very smart guy. Very motivated, I think, to figure out a good. Some kind of middle ground, a good solution here. The league is open to that for sure. I know that. The teams definitely are. I haven't spoken to every single one of my counterparts, but I got to think the vast majority of my counterparts, the vast majority of sporting directors want to see their first teams play. I don't know how many of them are in my camp that also want to see the second teams play. For me, I'm just hey, let's make the U.S. Open Cup even bigger. Add the entire MLS Next Pro in there, and
why not? Why not? There's no limit to the amount of teams.
And now you get this opportunity for those young kids as well.
Has it been a source of frustration, the lack of promotion and the lack of money that U.S. Soccer has put into? Because this isn't something new. Of course, this has been
we lose a ton of money on this every year. So it's if from a P&L standpoint, our team and most MLS teams. I don't think it's any, there's a lot of challenges economically to make these clubs work and make these clubs economically viable. So to have a competition out there where every MLS team loses on it's a huge money loser. is not great. It doesn't feel great. Now, again, I'm of the mindset, and our ownership group is on the mindset is like, hey, like we'll eat it. We'll eat that if there's a chance to compete, chance to win a trophy, chance to compete for Champions League, chance to have our brand out there more, hopefully in a positive manner. But when you're playing, small little teams away in small little venues with small little crowds and a crappy broadcast production and all that's not good for the New York City FC brand. It just isn't. It's not good for the MLS brand. And so going back to your first question, like in the new stadium,
but that's the romance of the game.
New stadium, like I anticipate in the new stadium, we should have 25,000 people at our U.S. Open Cup games going crazy, and we will make a big deal out of it. And I hope that we draw home games, because I'd rather play at home in front of 25,000 people than on the road in front of 2,500 people or 250 people.
As a season ticket holder, as well as your broadcaster, is it part of the plan to include U.S. Open games in the season ticket package?
Yes. That's why I anticipate there'll be 25,000 people there.
Well, there you go. Brad Sims is off. I can't hear you, Roberto. Can't hear you.
I muted myself just in case. Sorry. I said that's where we ended it? I guess so.
That's where he ended it. Your question about we're going to be covered for the U.S. Open Cup. 25,000 people are going to be. So a lot to react to here, and we're going, look, we had Brad on. It was a good sit down, and I think it's appropriate to react to some of this. I'm going to say this, Roberto, and I think Brad's done a fantastic job as president of the club. I mean, he's a business guy first, and you heard that. Comes from a very successful organization, the Cleveland Cavaliers, NBA, did some fantastic things there. He knows what he's doing in helping to build a club. But the U.S. Open Cup, if we look at it similar to what the FA Cup was, when he talked about, and it's a money loser. We know that. We'd have to be how did he put it? The good guy, we'd have to be the good guy, the nice guy, and lose money. And it doesn't work that way in the real world, the business world. But when he said playing small little teams in front of, at these, in front of these, at these facilities that aren't, necessarily proper or good for MLS and New York City FC's brand, that's what this event is all about. What are the best FA Cup games? When they go into a ground, into a town, that might hold 750 at the ground.
But there's a difference. There's a huge difference.
Hold on.
And I understand what he's saying, and I haven't thought about it in this way, but I paid attention to what he was saying. There's a huge difference. You can watch a 5th division versus a 2nd division, team in England, playing in the FA Cup, and you have a professional broadcast of that game, okay? If you see we have seen how some of these games are being broadcast, they look terrible, the early round games, and it isn't until like either the quarterfinals or the semis or the final where you finally get a professional broadcast. So here is what it boils down to. Now, I'm on the side that I want to see all MLS teams compete in this tournament. But I also see the side of where MLS can make a hell of a lot more money doing Leagues Cup, and they do make a hell of a lot more money making Leagues Cup. And look, these things they're in business to make money. Okay, and growing the game also makes money. So I understand your point. But U.S. Soccer has to invest a hell of a lot more than they're investing to make this tournament what it really should be. They're competing for the oldest trophy in the United States in any sport. Okay? That is something that's important. And they have to get that word out there, and they've got to start treating this as big time. And once you start doing that, more people start coming to games. And maybe the best way to do that is that, look, New York City hosting a game against Hartford Athletic at Belson Stadium doesn't seem to make any sense. I would prefer to play in Hartford like they did this year, right? You know, when they played other small teams, I think that the MLS teams should always travel, that the team that is the smaller team should always host. And the reason that I want that is because it goes to your point of it growing the game. So all of a sudden in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they're going to get to see LAFC, or they're going to get to see New York City FC. In Peoria, Illinois, they're going to get to see Inter Miami. You know, whatever it is, you get to see these bigger teams, these big teams in this competition in markets where they haven't seen, and you're exposing it to a lot more people. And if they're upsets, then great, because freaking upsets are, you know, you love all this stuff. And it should be harder for the MLS teams to be able to win some of these games and, you know, give advantage to the smaller teams that way. It makes for a more exciting competition. But, you know, what's the point of having, you know, who was one of the teams that came over this year? Okay, let's just say Sacramento Republic, and that's one of the bigger teams in the lower divisions. What's the point of having Sacramento Republic at lower.com field or having them at Exploria? What's the point? Go send those teams to Sacramento, and it's a much bigger deal. I remember when Cincinnati was still one of the lower division teams, and they had that nice run in the U.S. Open Cup, and they were playing in their college field, and they were getting 45,000 people a game because people in Cincinnati were excited to see an MLS team and see their team do well. This is what they've got to do, and a lot more of it. And U.S. Soccer's got to put a lot more money in marketing behind all of this.
Well, don't you get the feeling that there's a large disconnect between U.S. Soccer and MLS?
Yes.
I mean, large. I mean, like huge, like gaping hole, large, because you're talking about, you know, one of these, you know, going to one of these smaller teams that I referred to that Brad talked about, and you say you'd like to see them there. I mean, it can't cost that much to increase the production value by, you know, a standard that would be acceptable by all. I mean, you could do 2 cameras, you know, 1 announcer, and still make it look pretty good. So I don't, or you want to
go and they sell it to somebody. They actually go on and sell it, and they do a real production, and they go and they sell ads and things like that, and that's how you build it. You invest first. It may be a money loser to begin, but then it starts coming together for you. I mean, but you can't treat it. U.S. Soccer doesn't treat it very well. They put no money into this, or as little money as possible into this, and it shows. It just absolutely shows. And until they really invest, I sort of understand why MLS sort of begged out, although I don't want them to beg out. I want them to be part of it. But they've got to do better. And Brad explained a lot of that very well about how every U.S. Cup, you know, open game is a freaking money loser for them. And I get it.
Yep. No, he kind of reiterated the Don Garber points from about a year ago, to be honest with you. It sounded very similar to what Garber said and really took a lot of heat for it.
No. Garber.
He was talking about TV.
No.
He was talking about TV. He was talking about
that
branding.
part, yes.
He was talking about branding. He was talking about branding. He was talking about TV value. He was talking about facilities that they were playing in.
Yeah, but the facilities MLS is playing in similar facilities than any of those, if not worse facilities. No, but the facilities issue, the facilities statement was really what grabbed the attention, right? That was what really grabbed the attention, because a lot of those fields in a lot of those lower leagues are still pretty damn good. They're a hell of a lot better than Belson and where do the Red Bulls play? In
Montclair State.
In Montclair State. Come on. Right. No, MLS is playing in the same sort of places for those games. And I'm fine with it playing. If the lower league teams are hosting games there, fine. Let an MLS team play there. I think it makes it great. That makes it great. For MLS teams to play there as a home game, no, that doesn't make it great. Let them go on the road. And that builds the game.
Well, we heard that Brad would like to have the first teams and the second teams all involved in the Open Cup. What else did we learn? You had asked about something, and then he brought it up, an unannounced area. So what did he say? Renderings late summer, early fall for a 4,000 square foot indoor, outdoor area, away game watch parties, things like that. And So that's something to look forward to see exactly how that's all laid out.
I mean, for what they had announced originally, it seems there's going to be restaurants or or food vendors there. So if you're working in that area and you want to stop by for lunch, you can stop by for lunch any day. It's going to be open to the public. So that's a great thing for the neighborhood.
And then the other thing also was about the second team, and he mentioned Chris Campbell. We both did. Chris putting out that within the pre-lease agreement is, I think, the way he called it, that New York City is required to host a second professional soccer team. Now, Brad said, I don't believe we are contractually obligated to have a second tenant, but we want one. But it will not be the MLS Next Pro team because New York City will have to fund that, and it would be another money loser. But if a pro team comes from outside the area, come on in, because they will be.
We believe, and we've spoken about this. We believe it's going to be a women's team, 100%. So it's just a matter of how that's going to work out. And look, there are different leagues to go to now because USL has their first division women's league starting, and then there's NWSL. So there are options there.
There's also USL Championship. Again, that's a pro team that's outside, and that would be the Brooklyn team, perhaps. That.
I mean, there's a lot. I don't want to speculate, and I don't. I know what I'd love to see, but that's that's just me, and I don't even really want to say it because I don't want people to start speculating that somehow I garnered what I think with inside information or anything like that. So I don't want to even start, but I have my idea what I want to see there. But
there've been. I mean,
it's up to them.
It's not a secret that Gotham and New York City have had discussions at some point along the way. I don't know when the most recent were, or because that's what you're talking about, I think. So I'm
trying not to say something, but fine, go right ahead.
Why wouldn't we say it?
I would love to see Gotham be there and not change their name, by the way.
It's not a commitment. I'm saying there's been discussions. It's happened.
Yeah.
So, that's all. But that could have been 2 years ago. I don't even know.
No, exactly. But I mean, that's what I'd love to see.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Gotham move to the new stadium and continue be calling themselves Gotham, because it's a freaking.
I think they should call themselves Gotham, New Jersey.
No, it's just Gotham FC or Gotham SC would be even better, or just Gotham would be even better than that.
When the Nets moved, they should have been the Brooklyn, New Jersey Nets. They should have done that too. What else did we learn? You asked about more games at Citi Field. That's a good question, but he said probably not because of the Met and Yankee baseball schedules. And actually, Citi Field, the Mets host more outside events than the Yankees do at Yankee Stadium. Therefore, the field is available fewer times. So he figures that the breakdown of home games will probably be similar, which was more Yankee State. Was it 9-6? I think it was 9-6.
It depends. Yeah, something like that.
And two games that are wild cards right now based on possible playoffs. And then the final thing, which was the first thing, is that they're hoping to throw the first shovel in the ground mid-September at the earliest, and that would be good.
Yeah, and then he said that the stadium would be opening in March, so they'd play 2 or 3 games, I mean, depending when in March, but to 2027. So we're looking at anywhere between 2 and 4 games on the road before they are able to open up their own stadium.
Well, Chris Campbell asked him many of the same questions, one of which I asked. I have to admit, I thought it was off the record when I was talking to Brad. It was before we did the interview. I just ran into him at the hotel, and we ended up talking like 20 minutes. And the one thing I asked him was this: now anybody's allowed to play their league games, out of market. Could be out of the country, could be boom. I said, New York City seems like this is perfect. And MLS right now is not in support of that. That's Chris also publicized that with his Q&A with Brad, and because that would be interesting prospect. And one thing Brad did say to me, it's like, well, if Las Vegas is like a potential site, why don't we'll move one of our league games since we are, I guess, New York City's known. I miss out on something. The New York City Wanderers, I like that. I mean, I see the outfield.
I like the Nomads better. And actually, I had named them the Nomads when they had played like in 6 different venues. And I think in the Chris Campbell interview, he decided he named my other hometown, Mexico City, as a place to go and host a game. That would be great. Can you imagine New York City hosting I don't know, Columbus at Estadio Azteca?
Yeah. I think it'd be fantastic.
Oh, it'd be brilliant.
Fantastic. But the league is not ready for this yet, but Brad has put it on the table. And that
FIFA's ready.
New York City would be willing to be a participant in that, especially now when they are the Wanderers and, they're at different stadiums for home games. And why not in some ways? And then figure out how to maybe bring some supporters with you wherever you might go. And so that's about it.
This is the 90-minute version, by the way.
That's okay. 90 minutes. Well, it's perfectly 90 minutes. So, 25 minutes with Brad. So it was good to sit with him. It was good to sit with Nick today to get his thoughts on this game coming up and how he might structure things, and especially on the attacking side where really few chances have been created over the last 2 games. And both on the road, we understand that. Back at Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium compliant with the Copa America fields. Beautiful. At least they're in compliance with somebody.
100%. 100%.
So, speaking of Copa, we've got Ecuador to go watch and other teams too. So.
Yeah, Ecuador is leading Jamaica 1-0, according to what I just saw. So,
all right.
Yeah. And then Mexico plays tonight, and that's going to be a really, really interesting game.
That's fun.
To watch Mexico against Venezuela, that's an even game for me, if not Venezuela being favored. That's how much Mexico has fallen and Venezuela has risen.
Yeah, really.
Good for them.
Friday Night Football, Yangel Herrera.
Yeah, what are you talking about Friday? It's Wednesday.
Well, Friday we have a game that we're doing, so why can't I talk about Friday?
That.
I was going to promote when we're on.
No, but I'm talking about Mexico and Venezuela.
Well, we're done. We're past 90 minutes, so we're done.
We were. Oh, okay.
It's 7:15 airtime. We're back to Eastern time and 7:15 and the whole thing.
Yes.
And that's the New York City FC Network. NYCFC.com/radio if you're like on the web. If you have the New York City app, it's NYCFC app. You just go on there and click on it, and there's English or Spanish. You can choose from there. And also the TuneIn app. So some people have the actual TuneIn app. You go on there, type in New York City FC Network, and then you can save it, and then it just, you have it available each time. And
it comes up as your favorites. You hit the little heart there, and it comes up as your favorites.
And if you are a subscriber to SiriusXM, FC 157, the English side, that commentary will be on also. And if you're going to watch on Apple TV, whether in the stadium or at home, you can use the app and get the English commentary there as well. So all kinds of places to listen to the broadcast. No excuse, Roberto.
No. But wait, let me tell them that in Spanish, sadly, we don't have all those venues because Apple hasn't included us yet, which is a sore spot, but we won't get into that. So what you have to do is that you start us on the radio, and then when the game starts, you hit pause and then wait about 90 seconds for Apple to catch up, and then you hit play again and then listen to us in Spanish. Also, I had a really nice sit down today with Maxi Morales. So he's my guest pregame at 7:15.
All right, so pregame is 7:15. Max Morales, my pregame with Nick Cushing. Man, we haven't got it covered. I've got to make one more thing. I learned something about MLS and Apple this week that I wanted to share. I know we're over, but you'll really enjoy this.
Okay.
I'm certain of it. First of all, in the MLS offices, there are 10 people who all they do, they're exclusively working on the Apple brand broadcast. 10 people. I assume they're full-time. 10! Now, one of these people, Roberto, this is the job. How do you get this job? One person travels the country going into restaurants and pubs to try to convince those restaurants and pubs, in particular soccer pubs, and where they're going to show soccer games anyway, to subscribe to Apple and MLS Season Pass so that it can be added into the where people come into the pub. You can put on you could put on Messi or you could put on Alonso Martinez, whoever you prefer to watch that day. And
yes, or they can just still do it, still keep the free side, and there's always a game or two that is free every week.
Well, my thought when I heard this, the first thing I thought of, Roberto, and again, now I'm not a businessman, as everybody has learned during this 90 minutes. I care about the soccer. I could care less about the business, although the business side of it also pays for my ability to broadcast a game, so I'm not going to argue with that. But
good.
But are you telling? If I walk into a restaurant or a pub or whatever, if I offer that for free, you think they take it? The answer is yes. If I say you're going to have to pay whatever a month, they might say, well, we've got all these other streaming, blah, 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 but they're going to hem and haw. Some will say yes. I'd be really interested to know this person in the MLS offices that travels around the country. I wonder how often he calls back to the commissioner and says, look, man, the Heineken is great. They have no interest in the games. I mean,
I'm interested in that as well, to see what I really am now. Now I'm curious. Now that I know that they have that person, I'm interested to see what the reaction is and to see, that feedback and how MLS uses that feedback and Apple uses that feedback to be able to tweak what they're doing and figure out a way to get this into more places, because a lot of these things are much more expensive for bars and restaurants than they are for us as individuals. There are special rates. So NFL season pass is the same way. If you have the NBA, all of these are a lot more expensive. And I think that if you're trying to break into the market, make it as cheap as freaking possible. Make sure that the games get cheap. Make sure that the games get shown. Yeah. Don't, you want to walk into a place and say, hey, I really want to watch a New York City FC game, and then say, sorry, we don't subscribe to Apple. What are you going to do?
Probably easily pick, let's just say, 250 soccer bars across the country. I just threw that number out. And just go to all of them and get it in there, man. Get it in there, and then build it off from that. But
I want to be able to walk into a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Well, that's true, too.
They've got 1 million screens up there, and none of them are going to be showing MLS unless they subscribe. And I don't know what the cost is. I would have to look it up. If I knew you were going there, I would have, I had the analysis here. But, we got to figure, they got to figure that out and make sure. But of course, it's all about demand. If you have enough people coming in, to Buffalo Wild Wings and saying, I really want to watch soccer, and they say, sorry, we don't have it, and then they walk out and they lose a customer, then at that point, they start wondering, all right, maybe we need to invest in this. But I don't know if the demand is there. Television ratings haven't shown us that the demand is there, and they've got to build all these things to be able to build it out.
That's funny you said Buffalo Wild Wings. My family and I, we have several times gone to a Buffalo Wild Wings close by to us because they show, like, for the World Cup.
Yeah,
so for some really, and almost always it's U.S. I don't know if they show other games, but a big U.S. Men's or women's national team game, they're packed. They're there and they're packed. I mean, they're packed.
I miss their chicken burgers. They used to have such good chicken burgers, and they took it off the menu. And
I don't remember what I ordered there, but I can't remember. I guess we probably ordered wings.
Probably those are good too.
All right. That's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks. We're looking forward to painting the picture at the game on Friday as New York City plays host to Orlando City at Yankee Stadium. Thanks for being with us on this live NYCFC Views. Have a good night, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram,